Now in Cairo, Egyptologists have discovered what may be the oldest and most complete mummy ever discovered in Egypt.
Deep within the Taposiris Magna temple complex in northern Egypt, archaeologists are on the hunt for the lost tomb of Cleopatra. For centuries, this elusive tomb has remained undiscovered, shrouded in mystery and legend. But while excavating the site, a team of scientists made an unexpected and miraculous discovery. Hidden within the temple complex, untouched for centuries, lies an intact temple dedicated to Osiris, the ancient Egyptian god of the afterlife. Are your eyes and ears all here? Let's get into the details then. The timing couldn't have worked out any better if it had tried. Egyptologists are currently celebrating the 100th anniversary of the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb. At the same time, they have made a potentially significant new archaeological discovery that looks to have been made in Egypt. Excavators have found a tunnel beneath the Taposiris Magna temple, which is located to the west of the ancient city of Alexandria. Based on their findings, they believe that this tunnel may lead to the grave of Queen Cleopatra. Evidence that this is indeed the case needs to be discovered, but such a discovery would be a monumental find and with the potential to rewrite what we know about Egypt's most renowned queen. Plutarch, who published a biography of Cleopatra's husband, the Roman general Mark Antony, and is responsible for the lengthiest and most thorough account of the last days of Cleopatra's rule, said that Antony and Cleopatra were buried inside of Cleopatra's Mausoleum. Plutarch wrote both the biography and the narrative of the final days of Cleopatra's reign. Plutarch states that on the day that Augustus and his Roman army entered Egypt and occupied Alexandria, Antony fell on a sword, died in Cleopatra's arms, and was subsequently buried in the mausoleum. This all took place on the same day. 2 weeks later, Cleopatra went to the mausoleum to make offerings and pour libations, and while she was there, she took her own life in a manner that has never been fully explained, although it is a common misunderstanding that she was bitten by an asp. After that, she was also entombed within the mausoleum. In the days that followed, Antony's son, Marcus Antonius Antillus, and Cleopatra's son, Ptolemy XV Caesar, also known as Caesarion or Little Caesar, were both assassinated by Roman forces. It is possible that the two young men were also buried there after their deaths. In the unlikely event that the mausoleum of Cleopatra has not already been obliterated by the waves of the Mediterranean, together with the majority of the Hellenistic city of Alexandria, and if it is discovered one day, this would be an unrivaled archaeological discovery. Even though the tombs of many famous historical rulers are still standing, for instance the mausoleum of Augustus in Rome, who was Antony and Cleopatra's mortal enemy, the tomb's contents have frequently been looted and lost over the centuries. The tomb of Philip II of Macedon, who was Alexander the Great's father and was discovered at Virginia in the late 1970s, stands out as a significant exception to this rule. The discovery of the tomb in its entirety has made it possible for decades of research to be conducted on its contents, which has contributed to an expansion of our knowledge about members of the Macedonian royal family and their court. The same thing would be true if Cleopatra's tomb was uncovered and it was discovered to be complete. Egyptologists, classicists, ancient historians, and archaeologists would be able to derive an enormous amount of fresh information from the contents of this. The majority of what we know about Cleopatra and her reign comes from ancient Greek and Roman literary sources. These texts were produced long after the Egyptian queen's death and were generally unfavorable toward her. We do not have a lot of material that reveals the Egyptian point of view on Cleopatra, but the information that we do have, such as honorific reliefs on the temples that she erected and votives that were dedicated by her subjects, provides us with a different understanding of who she was. To this day, the grave of any other Ptolemaic emperor has not been discovered. It has been stated that they were all located in the palace quarter of Alexandria, and it is assumed that they have all been submerged along with the rest of that section of the city. The architectural and material contents of the tomb alone would be enough to keep historians busy for decades, and they would reveal an incredible amount of knowledge on the Ptolemaic royal worship and the fusion of Macedonian and Egyptian culture. But if Cleopatra's remains were also found there, they could tell us a great deal more, such as the reason for her death and her physical appearance, and even provide an answer to the difficult question of whether or not she was of African or European descent. Should we have any hope of finding Cleopatra's remains and conducting an examination on them? From the time of Tutankhamun down to the common ancient Egyptians whose mummies have been unearthed throughout the ages, there is a lengthy history of poor management and poor treatment of the ancient Egyptians. Even though the time has mercifully passed since Victorian dinner parties featured the unwrapping of mummies as a form of entertainment, those who work in heritage are increasingly raising concerns about the appropriate treatment of our ancestors. It is possible to say that the finding of a lost city in Egypt that dates back 3,000 years and is now known as the city of Aten is an event that is of immense value to the discipline of archaeology. Egyptologists and archaeologists think that this discovery is the most significant one to have been made in the region since the tomb of the ancient Egyptian pharaoh Tutankhamun. In September of the year 2020, archaeologists in Egypt started looking for a funerary temple on the western bank of the Luxor River. Nevertheless, at that time, they did not consider the possibility of discovering anything even more significant, such as a long-lost metropolitan area. According to the statement that was released by the archaeological mission, the major objective was to identify the location of King Tutankhamun's mortuary temple. At the beginning of April 2021, a well-known Egyptologist by the name of Zahi Hawass announced that they had found the entire city of Aten, which had been abandoned for the past 3,000 years. Aten is also referred to as the Lost Golden City of Egypt. Ruler Amenhotep III, the ninth ruler of ancient Egypt's 18th dynasty, is credited with building the city of Aten. This is referred to the Lost City, and the name comes from the Egyptian divinity of the same name. It is believed that Aten, which was located in the southern portion of the city of Luxor, was the largest administrative and industrial settlement during that historical period. The finding of this city has made it possible to have a one-of-a-kind look into ancient Egyptian life during a time when the empire was at the height of its power and prosperity. Archaeologists have great expectations that this amazing discovery will add to a deeper understanding of past civilizations and the day-to-day lives of the people who lived in them. The month of September saw the beginning of excavation work in the region that is between the temples dedicated to Amenhotep III and King Ramses III. The group came to the ruins of a significant city that had been carefully maintained, including walls that were almost entirely unbroken and chambers that were furnished with objects that were utilized daily. It is currently being hailed as one of the most significant archaeological finds ever made, and it is believed that the entire city was buried by the sands of Egypt. Archaeologists have discovered rare items including colored pottery, jewelry, and mud bricks with seals of Amenhotep III. These artifacts have been uncovered throughout Egypt, and these antiques have a high monetary value. Additional archaeological work is currently being carried out at the site, and the team is anticipating the discovery of unopened tombs that are filled with wealth but have not yet been opened. Egyptologists and archaeologists are hailing this finding as the most significant find in the region since the tomb of Tutankhamun, the boy king, was discovered. An ancient Egyptian site called Taposiris Magna was the spot where a team of archaeologists discovered a body that dated back 2,000 years and had a tongue made of gold. The mummy was found in the tomb of a nobleman named Tutankhamun. In the same area, they found 15 more graves with rock-cut tombs. All of these discoveries were made on the same site. The team of investigators that was led by Dr. Kathleen Martinez has a theory that the tongue of the deceased person may have been replaced with a golden tongue during the embalming process. Their theory is based on the assumption that the tongue of the deceased person was removed, and this was done so that the individual, once they had passed on to the afterlife, would be able to converse with Osiris, the god of the dead. According to one version of an ancient myth, Osiris was the ruler of the underworld and also functioned as the judge of the souls of those who had died. It was believed that whoever entered the hereafter with the golden tongue would be able to talk with Osiris, and this would let them receive their rewards. The excavation is being conducted by a team of archaeologists from the University of Santo Domingo who have been toiling away at the site for about 10 years at this point. The ancient Greek and Roman civilizations are famous for their usage of burial shafts, which were intended to keep remains contained inside of a mountain or naturally occurring rocky mountain. These burial shafts gained their fame because they were employed in ancient Greece and Rome. Approximately 2,000 years have passed since they were constructed. The skeletal bones of the mummies that were discovered in the tombs have since deteriorated, but the stone burial masks have not been damaged in any way, which enables the excavation team to gain an idea of what each individual may have looked like when they were younger. It was claimed that the skull and the majority of the skeleton structure that was found to have a gold tongue and was in good shape for their age. Dr. Martinez was able to dig a lot of sculptures and expensive trinkets that have not been damaged, which has allowed researchers to understand more about the people who lived during that period. Even though the other burials were not in as excellent of shape as this one, Dr. Martinez was able to excavate these items. Even though the statues date back hundreds of years, they are in such good condition that it is possible to identify the individuals depicted by their hairstyles and headdresses. One of the 15 burials contained a female mummy, and the death mask that she wore covered a substantial section of her body and portrayed her with a headdress and smile on her face. Within the walls of the temple of Taposiris Magna, the researchers had previously unearthed several coins that bore the likeness of Queen Cleopatra VII engraved upon them. This demonstrates that she was in power about the time that many of the dead were being placed to rest in their rock-cut tombs, which provides some indication of her dominance. That's all for the video today. We'll be right back with more videos soon, so don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel, and thanks for watching.